To some people, the Jaguars hold the keys to the draft. And some of those people pick in front of the Jaguars. I'll tell you what that all means in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right. It's your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you check in, whether you watch or listen. Make sure you go to that location so that you see Locked On Jaguars each and every day. I'm going to let you know exactly what we're talking about 3 days out from the NFL draft, or 2 days if you really want to think about it. We're going to end up talking about 4 positions that are open for impact. James Gladstone said they needed to leave room to onboard their draft picks. Those are at certain positions. I'll tell you what positions those likely are where you would likely see immediate impact from your Jacksonville Jaguars draft choices. Finding touchdowns might have something to do with that third segment, but we'll talk about finding touchdowns and where, if the Jaguars want to find touchdowns in each of the respective 3 rounds, what group of players will be there for them to have their choices from. But we'll start with, do the Jags hold the keys to the draft? To some people, they do. Most of those people pick behind the Jaguars, but I'm going to play a clip for you where my man Cattle's up with Locked On Patriots. He seems to think that the Jaguars hold the keys to the draft for the Patriots, and the Patriots pick in front of the Jaguars by 1 pick. I'm going to let him do the explaining for you, though, but this is just a bigger lesson to all of us of what we are all going through with the NFL draft, how other fan bases' thoughts and other media members' thoughts can affect yours, especially when you do the job that we do. So without further ado, this is about 4 minutes. I want y'all to hear this in the first segment. This is what we're all going through around the Locked On Podcast Network. Here's Locked On Patriots talking about the Jaguars who actually pick a pick behind them, and I want you to check it out.
The trade winds could be starting to swirl around Gillette Stadium. Teams across the league, all 32, they understand what they want to do in round 1. They have stacked their boards. All the scouts have spoken. The coaching staff has spoken. The front office is now in the final moments of putting information together and figuring out what path they want to take. It's not to say that things can't change. Of course they can change. You get closer to picking, you don't know who's going to be there. You don't know if trades happen before you get on the clock. All of those things will unfold, and you have to be able to react and adjust accordingly. But as we get closer to Thursday night, and that first pick from the Tennessee Titans is on the clock, as we all know it's going to be Cam Ward. But as that clock begins, everything is set. The plan is set. And as we get closer to Thursday night, the info that is leaked to insiders, the people that are talking around the league, they know more now than they knew before, because that prep work is done. And the closer you get to that number 1 pick, the closer we get to actual tangible information being leaked. And because of that, the angling has begun. And we should take it seriously. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN was on NFL Live recently, and Jeremy said the Jaguars could be a sleeper to pick Ashton Genti at number 5. It's funny because Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network, he did a conference call, and he mentioned the Jags as a team to keep an eye on for Genti, calling it a potential quote-unquote statement pick at number 5 for the new regime. Adam Schefter, he wrote a long column about the intel that he has gathered over the past couple of weeks. And Schefter wrote that new GM James Gladstone of the Jags might not be predictable. As one league executive said recently, quote, Jacksonville is a wild card. Watch, unquote. A lot of people have been talking about Mason Graham going to the Jags at 5. I was not necessarily swayed saying, oh, yeah, that's 100% going to happen, because the head coach of the Jags, as we know, is Liam Cohen from Warwick, Rhode Island. He's an offensive guy, was the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay last year. So I wasn't just going to easily write down Mason Graham and Sharpie at number 5. And as we get closer to the draft, There's a lot of people talking about the Jags selecting Genti at 5. It begs the question, number one, who's leaking this information? Who's leaking the information that the Jags might use that 5th pick on Genti and not Mason Graham? We have a couple of options here, a few options. Number one, it could be the Jags. The Jaguars could want to trade down, understanding that the Raiders and other teams could be in love with Ashton Genti. Those teams might think they're a final piece away from the puzzle. And so the Jaguars are putting out there, hey, we might draft Ashton Genti. Kind of love the guy. Trying to persuade teams under them to move up and give them the offer that they can't refuse. Second option here is that Genti himself, his representation, they are leaking the Jaguar stuff at number 5. Why would that be? Because you're trying to raise the stock of your client. Oh, you think Genti's going to go 6 to the Raiders? Well, he's going to be a top 5 guy because the Jaguars have their eyes on our Ashton Genti. So this could be coming from Team Genti. It also could be coming from your New England Patriots. Why would the Patriots start leaking information about the Jaguars possibly taking Genti at 5? Because if you're the Raiders and you thought that Genti was going to fall to you at 6, you might show a little bit more urgency to leapfrog Jacksonville in the draft order to pick Genti if that's the guy that you truly want.
As Nick Cattles, host of Locked On Patriots, I found that clip when I was doing my Locked On NFL show where we use clips. I gave a little bit of an extended version there, but it was so good I did not want to cut it off. But that gives you an idea of a lot of the things that many people around the network and probably around the National Football League are pondering and thinking right now. Like, what will they do here in Jacksonville? And the Patriots, I find it interesting there. If Nick Cattles is correct, then what's happening is there are a lot of folks that are even picking in front of the Jaguars that are trying to manipulate, if you will, the way that this draft could possibly go by mentioning the team that is the Jaguars who's picking behind them to try to get teams to come up and get in front of those people. And it could be very, very clear that all of those teams could be beneficial in all of those different entities that Nick mentioned. But who is telling a lie? Who is leaking it? And is it a lie? Is it a lie? Maybe there are independent lies. Maybe Jacksonville is putting that information out there. And maybe Genti's people are putting that information out there as well. And then maybe the Patriots are doing the same thing. Maybe it's beneficial to all of those people to put those narratives out there to see if they can make somebody jump up and give them what they want. But this is the draft, and this is what happens. I'll tell you what has to happen. The Jaguars have to get instant impact, and one of the ways you measure instant impact is touchdowns, people who can help this team score. Who in the draft can help them do that? I'll tell you about first and second day guys in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets even when demand is high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and the last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Here's why I use Game Time, because of the priority seating, man. Save now up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and etc. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. I'll spell it LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we're rolling along here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We got to find some touchdowns for the Jags as we get ready to turn the show towards guys that are getting instant impact. One of the ways you measure instant impact is, touchdowns offensively, defensively, that defense playing well and a player being able to make contributions to that defense that are playing well. Splash plays, touchdowns, like for instance, Deron Bland made a bunch of splash plays for Dallas a couple of years ago where he broke the record for pick sixes. And the other way you can make a contribution is to be just a good enough player that your teammates are always bragging about you, and you're displaying leadership. And you're probably going to be like, if you're a dude picked in the 5th or 6th round and you're outplaying that draft selection. So those are some ways you can measure it. But first, you got to find those players. And where can the Jaguars find them? We're going to talk about the touchdown aspect of it. At number 5, if they want touchdowns, they can just take Ashton Genti, because I think he's going to be a touchdown machine. And folks can sit there and argue all day about positional value and whether or not this is what the Jags really need at this point. And we can lament and go through all of the reasons why you shouldn't take a running back at number 5. But then you can also sit there and go, I'm not going to pay attention to what we're talking about 5 and 6 and 7 years from now. I'm just going to say, for the next 5 years, what can that kid do for you? And what Ashton Genti can do for you is give you a dude that is a dynamic football player, one of the best football players on the field, a dude that is very, very hard to tackle. He can be a thing that defensive coordinators will pinpoint to try to stop each and every time, even though he's not as big as, say, Saquon Barkley or an Adrian Peterson or Derrick Henry. He is what I call an identity football player. That means that when you get him, he changes the identity of who you are on offense. And it comes along with a lot of the things that the Jaguars say that they want to do. They want to run the football. They want people to see them coming. They want to be physical. They want to give Trevor Lawrence more of an sort of an open canvas to work with by having better players. He would satisfy all of that stuff. So if you're the Jaguars, the immediate future and the immediate ramifications of adding someone like Ashton Genti to your football team, it's a no-brainer. Where else could you get it? Ted McMillan or Tetaroa or whatever. Somebody told me that they don't know where that name comes. They want me to call him T-Mac or what. First of all, it's the barbershop. We can make nicknames up the way we want them. 2, a lot of times I do that because I don't know how exactly, if it's Tetaroa or if it's if it's Tetaroya or Tetaroa or Tetaoria. I want to make sure I say it right, so I'll call him Tet. By the way, about 10 other people I talked to have shortened that up and called it Tet. So I'm going to call him Tet McMillan. Early in the draft, he can definitely help you, because what he'll do is give you a vision of what your wide receiver core and what your weapons for Trevor Lawrence can look like, and you can actually see the vision where you got that big old dude at 6'5", you got Brian Thomas Jr. There aren't that many overthrows. There are big targets everywhere. It also will paint a picture for you that they don't care about Gabe Davis being on this roster too much. But yeah, those are some things early in the first round. If you want to talk about getting touchdowns, I think those things help. Colston Loveland is another one, even though I don't think tight end is a big priority for the Jaguars right now. He's another one on offense. I don't necessarily think that the Warren kid is the way you go, because there's too much stuff you got to do schematically to get him right, to get him open and be a factor here. But Tyler Warren might be a dude that the Jaguars envision if they think he can have a presence like a guy like Gronk or Travis Kelce, even if he's half of that. But that sounds like you're getting Dallas Goedert or Mark Andrews, and I don't think you want to get that at number 5. So that's early in the first round where the Jaguars could get it. In the second round, if you saw a thumbnail, Luther Burden Jr., I don't think Luther Burden III is going to be there. Right? He shouldn't be. He should be gone by the middle of the first round, but teams are probably going to make a mistake. And Ameka Igbuka, 2 guys. And I heard Igbuka is a dude the Jaguars really, really like. You have to understand that Ohio State recruited a lot of 5-star recruits. And Igbuka after Marvin Harrison Jr., or right around the time that Marvin Harrison Jr. came out, I think that came out around the same time, Igbuka was one of those can't miss top 10 prospects. I mean, top 10 overall prospects, right? From out in Washington. And he went there and he played with all of these other receivers that are in the NFL, including one that isn't. Jeremiah Smith right now is going to be better than anybody who's played at Ohio State. But you need a dude that knows who he is and it can still fit in and find ways to make contributions, even when there are other people taking up a lot of stuff around him. So people might hold it against Igbuka because he was seemingly never the best receiver they've had on their team. Maybe last year he was, or not in 2023. But even with that, man, it's just like people hold that against him. Y'all ready for this? People held that against Brian Thomas Jr. Remember that? Yeah, I know you do. And look what happened to him. So don't be fooled and tricked by the fact that a big-time five-star recruit went to a school that has wide receivers who are all 4 and 5-star recruits and all going to the NFL. And he stayed all 4 years and played a role. They won a national championship. Don't think he's just a role player. I think he's a lot better than that. I think he did what he had to do, and I think it trained him for what's going to happen in the NFL. Brian Thomas Jr. is the clear number one here. We don't need a dude coming in here with an ego that's going to say, well, I was a 5-star guy. I won a national championship. Give me all the balls. See, that's the last thing you need. You don't need a diva, but you do need someone who understands winning, and you need someone that, hey, if Brian Thomas Jr. is having an off day or they're covering him or they're running bracket coverage and they're doing everything, you need a dude now that can go get you 8 catches for 130 yards and be a number one at any specific time. That's what I love about that dynamic between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. T. Higgins thinks he's pretty good and wants to get paid as a pretty good player. Oh, but make no mistake about it, T. Higgins knows that Jamar Chase is the best player on that team. That's why he joined agents with him, and he took a contract that ain't nowhere near the contract of the other guy. The alpha is the alpha, and it takes a really, really good, mature player to admit that other dude, nah, he's that guy, but I can be the guy next to the guy, and we can go win. I think Smith, Devontae Smith up in Philly has done a real good job at that. Certainly, he can't be arguing at Jalen Hurts when A.J. Brown's always over there arguing at Jalen Hurts. And Devontae Smith just makes plays. He gets all of the acclamation that he's supposed to get, and the team wins, and the tide rises, and all of that stuff. And he eventually gets all the credit that he's supposed to get anyway. So those are players that in the first and second round, if the Jaguars are interested in finding touchdowns and identity for their team, those are guys that the Jaguars could take a look at early. Some guys late. I really like Kyle Williams as a route runner. And you're still talking about a dude that's going to be a 2 or a second or a third receiver here to help Jacksonville. Because remember, they got Diamond Brown already. And, they got Parker Washington they're going to take a look at. The thing is though, you can never have too many weapons. Kyle Williams, Savion Williams, guys like that. Jalen Royals might be another guy you look at in the third round if he is still available. Beck out of TCU, lots of players. And the Rams know exactly what the Jaguars know exactly what they want. Sort of like the Rams, they're going to be able to take those guys and make them play right away. Where else could they get impact? Let's just say when I asked Liam Cohen about getting guys that are there now or there for the future, he made it very, very clear. They had a lot of guys play early in Tampa. Let's talk about it. We'll discuss where the Jaguars can find players. Where do they have enough holes to have onboarding impact from players that they draft this coming weekend? We'll discuss that more here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Amazon Fire TV and Locked On. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into a gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops, and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube, third generation. All right, talking about 4 positions of impact, 4 positions that are open for guys to be able to come in and make an immediate contribution for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have discussed whether the Jaguars hold the keys to the draft, sitting at number 5. How do they find touchdowns, which one of the things and one of the metrics we use for instant impact. And now we've talked about the positions, some of the positions, at least with wide receiver. Let's get back to it right now. So 4 positions open where they could get immediate impact. If it's running back, that means that they feel like they're going to upgrade right now with the type of player that they have. I think Genti right now is viewed as a prospect more than Etienne, obviously, and Tank Bigsby were. I mean, Etienne was the 18th pick in the draft, I believe, 18th or 21st. And Bigsby was a 3rd-round pick. You're talking about Ashton Genti being a 5th overall pick. So that means that people think his NFL career is going to be more impactful than ones that you could project for those other 2 players. I think it's an upgrade. I definitely do, especially considering the fact that the other 2 guys are still here. And the Jaguars, while they use a lot of 11 personnel, do have a lot of situations where they play 2 tailbacks. So that's obviously one. Wide receiver is another one, because I think they've only mentioned 3 guys. They got 4, but they only mentioned 3. Ironically, the one dude that they aren't mentioning makes more money than anybody else on the team, and that's Gabe Davis. But I would suspect that a team that really wants to throw the ball around the way that they do and have capable route runners and guys that can get in and out of the breaks and make ball and catch balls and have the guys that have a high football IQ, I think they're going to touch the wide receiver spot twice. I think they're going to touch it twice. One could be for immediate impact. The other one could be for potential immediate impact, where a guy can have some plays for him, and eventually, it's sort of like McMillan down in Tampa, he can come on later in the year. So you notice last year what Tampa did, and this is the one thing I really do like about Liam Cohen. They lost Mike Evans with a hamstring. They lost Chris Godwin. I think both of those injuries happened the same night, in fact, on a night game. They lost Chris Godwin for the remainder of the season. They had taken this kid McMillan, I think, in the 2nd or 3rd round out of Washington last year. By the end of the year, when they were getting people back, they got Mike Evans back. They actually had a number 2 receiver in McMillan who was killing people. And that's because they onboarded him correctly, and he came on and he started running those routes and he started making those toe tap catches. So this guy really, really did have an impact. And I think that they're confident that they could do the same thing here, because they can identify the type of player that they really, really want. And I think that's why wide receiver is a position where you could look at them to get a player on the first 2 days that can have an immediate impact. They have 5 choices. Well, 1st, 2nd, and 2/3. No, right now they have 4 choices in those first 4 picks. So we're just going to assume this is where those guys are going to come from. The other one is on offense, at least another offensive lineman. You could get an impact for offensive lineman day 1 or day 2 here in this draft. And it could be a center. Like if they took a center, the kid out of Georgia, Jarrett Wilson, that could be an indicator that he's going to compete and try to push. If it's not this year, then by next year, you'll know who your center of the future is. Maybe that's the way that they go. Or if in the 2nd round, an interior lineman or a tackle kind of sits there at the top of the 2nd round, I could see them either there or in the 3rd round getting a developmental offensive lineman and making that person the 5th player that they've taken at that position group this season to continue their overhaul. On defense, I can definitely see a safety, a ball hawking safety who's also a very good tackler and just a young, spry member of that middle back of this defense. I could definitely, with the way that they're going to coach and play it up, I could see that being a big impact. I could actually see corner being an impact. Like if they move back a little bit and Jahdae Barron is sitting right there, I'm thinking it might be hard pressed for them not to take him, even though they still have Jerry Jones. They got Damian Lewis, Jordan Lewis. I still feel Tyson Campbell. You can never have enough guys who can be really, really active and pesky back in that secondary. So I don't think it's without fail to think that they could add impact there. And of course, defensive line and edge are 2 positions where defensive tackle, mainly I saw on PFF where they had 3 technique as a major need. I don't think that position itself is a major need for this draft. I think nose tackle is more of a need for this particular team. But I will tell you, if they could get an upgrade, I think that there are 3 or 4 guys that play 3 technique that would upgrade this team. I definitely think that. So you could see impact there. Better activity from the interior for the pass rush, more activity when you're talking about shedding blocks and being able to stop the run and keep those big linemen off of your linebackers. That's definitely something. And this is the one spot I think that they could actually get the impact on day 3. If there's a Jamari Caldwell or something like that sitting here, man, or that kid from Maryland, there's some good nose tackles that are going to be able to help you. And the Jaguars have 2 picks in that round. So this is the one position I would consider that they may be able to find the player and zoom in on a player and identify someone in round 4 that could really help the trenches on the defensive line. I think edge rusher, I think it's going to be something that they're either going to pull a veteran after the draft, or if something falls to them on day 2 or day 3 that they just can't resist, I think they'll go ahead and reach for a 3rd edge rusher also. But look for that to be something I think that they pick on, they may pick up after the draft in the veteran market, and then moving forward, something that they can prioritize down the road once they get this thing moving the way that they want it to go. Lots to talk about, lots of stuff to unpack here on Locked On Jaguars. We'll have coverage for you leading all the way up to the draft. Of course, once the Jaguars make their pick on Thursday, I'll do a live reaction to that, and also record a show on Friday that'll be out early in the morning talking about what's left. That's Friday's a big day for the Jaguars. They have, at the minimum, they have 3 picks right now, and they pick very early again in the 2nd round. So that's going to be a big day. If you need to know anything about the draft, make sure you check out the Locked On NFL draft page, on whether it's on YouTube or wherever else, because that's where we have done our mock draft for the Locked On NFL Network, and I made my pick at pick 5. You get to see that. They put that out in episodes. Make sure you tap in each and every day wherever you get your podcast to make sure you check that out. All right, man. Hopefully you guys had a good time today. We'll continue to talk about the draft until there's no reason to talk about it. That means it'll be over, and we'll do a recap from it. But 2 more days here before the Jaguars make their selection. Let's get to it, man. Let's just stay in tune. We've come this far to turn. We've come too far to turn away. Now, go ahead and stay all tapped into the draft and see what the Jaguars do in the first season of their rebirth. All right, we'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.